helping you with Acorn and RISC OS computing.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to come and listen to me tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. A bit disjoint tonight because it's currently 3 weeks from the show, and Chris has asked me to do a bit of a show preview. Anyone who knows me knows that 3 weeks is an awfully long time before the show, for me to be properly organised. So what you're going to get tonight is a little bit of a work in progress 3 weeks before the deadline. There's going to be a bit of a mixture of RComp stuff and RISC OS developments. I'll try and split it into RComp first and then RISC OS developments. I have a feeling that possibly some of the RISC OS development stuff will be more interesting than the RComp stuff, but we'll see. There'll hopefully be something for everybody tonight. You'll notice that there are two thumbnails for me in the Zoom window tonight. That's because I'm going to be doing part of the show, the meeting from this laptop, which you can't entirely see, and the other half from my usual machine behind me. The reason for doing it from this laptop is that over the summer, one of the things that's kept me very busy is doing RISCBooks for customers. The situation with Windows and Windows 10 coming to a somewhat end of life in a few weeks' time, I think about 2 weeks' time, but might be 3. It has reminded everybody that it's probably time to upgrade. Needless to say, everybody leaves it to the last minute. And although it's perfectly possible to get another year of extended support, and I'll explain how to do that in a minute, there is a sort of general consensus that it's time for people to migrate away from Windows 10 onto, well, something else, usually Windows 11. And so for the last couple of months, we've had a little flurry of people wanting to do that. So what's sort of caught my eye and has been of interest to quite a few customers is an 18-inch laptop that I came across selling for basically about £1,000. And you might think 18 inch is absolutely huge, but what's special about it is because there's a trend away from the traditional 16:9 sort of TV aspect ratio for monitors. The 18-inch is only about the size of a 17-inch laptop, so it's not extraordinarily big. But it means that you get a screen shape that is much more interesting in terms of desktop. So you actually get a 1920 by 1200 resolution, giving you considerably more vertical screen space than the traditional 1080p, which is quite appealing when you're working on documents which tend to have more height top to bottom if you're working on an A4 page than left to right. So basically, these laptops are powered by AMD chips. We've seen a trend away from Intel back to AMD. Historically, when we started doing RISC cubes back in 2005, all the systems were AMD powered because they offered much better value and performance than Intel did. But then for a long time during the sort of Centrino and Core 2 Duo i3, i5, i7 era, Intel have been on top. But very much so in the last couple of years, we've seen the wind turn back to AMD, that Intel have had a series of fairly major failures in terms of delivering cool running, high performance parts. And the momentum has very much shifted towards AMD. So these laptops actually have 8 core 16-thread processors in them with 16 gig of RAM and a terabyte of NVMe high-speed storage, making them very tasty machines. And with the 18-inch screen, they're very much a unit that people can use on their desktops as complete computer systems. Or desktop replacements, while still being not obscene for actually carrying around because of the screen shape. And as I say, this has proven quite popular as replacements for older laptops. And whilst we can do smaller ones, I think it's sort of interesting that as people's eyes get older, having a bigger screen that's allows us to make things a little bit larger, a little bit clearer. There's a lot to be said for it. Now, out of the box, these laptops don't work. They're not particularly RISC OS friendly. The AMD chips obviously don't run RISC OS natively. We have to use Virtual Acorn, but then we have to do a few extra tweaks and system configuration changes to make everything run smoothly. However, once done, we end up with a very nice system with offering both RISC OS and Windows 11, and allowing you to get the best of both worlds on the system. So basically, you've got a full range of Windows apps and also the complete, well, more or less complete range of RISC OS applications too. And then glue it all together with Uniprint, which is working just fine on Windows 11, contrary to what some people have emailed me about. If installed correctly, Uniprint does the business on the Windows 11 systems. So if I share my screen now, you give you some idea of the desktop space we have available. So you should now see a Windows 11 desktop. Yeah, okay. So we tailor the systems for best use and customize the software loadouts to what the user wants. So, for example, in this case, we've got somebody who prefers Firefox as their web browser and does their email in Thunderbird. So I preloaded those programs, and you can see that they're up right at the top right. I've also loaded things like Zoom and Teams because that was requested, and various other applications like the LibreOffice Office Suite, as well as RISC OS. This particular customer had RISC OS 4. I would normally prefer RISC OS Adjust on a virtual Acorn system, but this is what he had available to him, so that's what we've gone with. You'll note that small things like the movement of the start menu to the bottom left in a more traditional layout, as all part of making customers feel a bit more comfortable with the Windows 11 operating system. I also reduced the amount of adverts and promotional items that appear on the start menu and around, so that you don't get inundated with pop-ups and messages to try this, and we recommend that. So it's all toned down as much as possible. Then, of course, when we go into RISC OS, boom, we have a nice RISC OS desktop. And you can see another feature of this particular laptop is that not only is it a 1920, but it also runs at 144 frames a second. The screen is an IPS panel, which gives exceptionally good quality colors and angles, so that you can see from more or less any angle, you get a great picture on the screen, and it's very clear. And of course, although you won't be able to see it by Zoom, but it means that dragging windows around is super smooth. If we go to images, artworks, we can see how that's much slower. I should have remembered that because we're running on Zoom, that particular test always runs really slowly on Zoom, because it's having to broadcast each change of the screen over the internet. So it really slows it down. So yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. I'd forgotten that. That normally happens instantaneously. But basically, you can see popular RISC OS applications ready to go: Impression, Ovation, Schema, Fireworks. Ready as requested by the customer. But most of these would also be part of our standard loadout that we would do for customers. Another nice feature is that we're able to do to make use of some of the customizable gesture features that are present in modern Windows operating systems. So, for example, do a menu click on the laptop. I simply need to do a 3-finger tap on the tablet, on the touchpad even, and you can see the mouse, the menu appears. Initially, I thought doing a 3-finger tap would actually be a bit awkward, but in fact, it's a very natural gesture. You just put the middle 3 fingers together and gently tap on the thing, and you know, off it up it appears. So that effectively gives us all 3 mouse buttons on the touchpad, even when traveling. In the past, we've had to use the keyboard key to do that, and we still offer that, but it's nice to be able to do all 3 mouse buttons on the touchpad. We can also swap the middle and right mouse button so that it's 3 fingers for an adjust. But doing it this way means that if you plug in a mouse, then the mouse buttons work exactly as you'd expect with a plugged-in mouse as well. Taking a quick squiz at Uniprint, you can see that our the Microsoft Print to PDF print driver is installed, ready to go, and Uniprint has picked that up as being available to RISC OS. We can also cut and paste between the 2 operating systems and on links and have them go straight through. So if I click launch, put in, I've particularly tested that feature, but there we are. You can see it's opened the BBC website, and it's done so in Firefox, which is the customer's preferred browser. So yeah, I mean, this is particularly stuff that you haven't seen before, but it's a little reminder of what we do, and a bit of information about a laptop, which I think hits quite a few spots for quite a few RISC OS users, and has certainly proved popular in the last couple of months with people who have been inquiring about replacing old computers. Of course, we also do the mini PCs and full desktop PCs, depending on what customers do, and other small form factor machines. So if you're after a system that provides basically the compatibility of Windows with the convenience and friendliness of the RISC OS desktop that you love, then don't forget about RISC cubes and RISCBooks. They're very much a big part of our business still. Okay, so I'm going to close that out. I think that's sort of covered that portion of what I wanted to do. So if I stop screen sharing there and then close Zoom on this machine, I should be able to switch over to the other one. So let's see if that works. And I should be back. Yes, I see thumbs up. So my volume seems to be set to 0. So let's hopefully that's okay. I'm seeing. Let's see.
I can hear you okay, Andrew. I think everybody else probably
can. Okay, sorry. It was showing Rick Sterry's desktop, and it wasn't showing me as the speaker, which was slightly confusing. Is it working for everybody else that when I'm talking, I'm popping up as I'm seeing thumbs up? So yeah, okay, right, okay. Sorry for that little digression. It was slightly confusing. So the next thing to talk about is an update to our Netfetch software. I was shocked, horrified, I don't know, to realize that Netfetch 5.5 actually came out in April 2019. So that's well, I think before COVID. So that was the last time we made a charge on Netfetch when we first introduced the SSL stuff. I think TLS. Updates to Netfetch. So over the summer, there have been quite a few changes to different internet providers' services. Orpheus had a lot of changes to do with authenticated SMTP. PlusNet seemed to be going through all sorts of metamorphoses. don't really know, but it's been sort of most peculiar. And basically, this caused me to have a look at how we presented Netfetch to users. especially new users, because we had a few people come in who were previously using Popstar, etc., particularly with Orpheus. And I found myself actually setting the software up for them and sending them pre-configured versions of the software, which obviously was nice and easy for the customer, but it prompted me to have a good hard look at Netfetch and see what we could do to revamp it a little bit, make it a bit more sort of 2025 and a bit less 2019, as it were. Of course, there have been free upgrades in between from 2019, not literally in a 2019 state, but I think the last upgrade was sort of within the last 12 months. But it seemed right time to give it a lick of paint. So basically, we've revamped the starter. If I now, let's see if I can see. If I screen share to that window, all being well, share. Do you see a? Oh, I can't. Yes, I can see people in the corner of the screen. Are you seeing my RISC OS desktop? Yep, I'm seeing nodding heads. Good, good. So basically, we've revamped the setup for Netfetch. There's now an emphasis on authenticated SMTP, and also, although you can't see it in that screen, there will be more of an emphasis on SSL encryption and the like, since that's commonly required when you're setting up the software. As I say, this was largely brought on by the fact that Orpheus and PlusNet suddenly started requiring authentication on their servers, and in some cases SSL, but there were other internet providers also making changes, and we're seeing a general trend towards both authentication and SSL encryption. So it seems sensible to make Netfetch aware of that from the get-go, rather than making people root around in the innards of the software to enable some of those features. Another aspect of the program that I felt needed some attention was the fact that, well, a section that was missing from that startup wizard now. In the old versions, it had an emphasis on setting up NNTP news groups. And most internet providers are no longer offering news services. So having just a box for a news server to be put in didn't really make any kind of logical sense anymore, as something that the user had to tackle literally from the moment they set up the software. So instead, we've introduced a new free news wizard, or free news assistant, sorry, I try not to use the word wizard, to guide people through getting set up with Eternal September, which is a free password protected news server where you have to set up an account to use it. But that means that whatever your internet provider is, you can still partake of internet news groups. Things like Compsys, Acorn, Announce remain an important Acorn or RISC OS related news feed, announcement feed. And since Google no longer, as far as I'm aware, cache news groups, so you can't just sort of Google your way through to reading the news groups, it becomes more important again that if you want to sort of stay current within the RISC OS community and find out what's going on, then having a news feed is extremely helpful. So with this assistant, you simply need to click on the link, which is NetSurf compatible. Fill in your details. You click register. I did it this afternoon just to check, and they then send you an email which contains a password. You specify a user ID yourself. They send you the password, and you put so. See, it all fills in automatically. We click use these details, and the information fills itself in automatically for you. and you're ready to go receiving your news groups via Eternal September. So hopefully that will allow more people to get back involved in news groups again, now that it's become quite difficult through other ways. Another aspect to the new Netfetch is that there will be support for the latest TLS 1.3, and that will include there are extensions which are being enforced. I think it's by Google. I might be wrong on that. It's certainly one of the big boys, where they actually validate, as part of the SSL TLS handshake, they validate the host name and domain of the computer that's connecting to it. This is outside of what what the SMTP server itself actually does. There are already checks that we implement in 5.5 for communicating with the SMTP server aspect, for confirming you are who you say you are. But it's also possible to need to do that as part of the TLS handshake, and we're implementing that in the new net version of Netfetch, which will be version 6, because we've done 5.5, so we're on to version 6. So that should sort of make sure that we're up to date on the sort of full raft of SSL and TLS features required for modern email providers, and obviously build on that going forwards. The price will obviously include ongoing technical support and upgrades, and if we follow the current rate of knots, that should see you past 2030, and by that time, who knows where we'll be on RISC OS. Hopefully I should be doing a 64-bit version of Netfetch then, and so Netfetch 7 will be a 64-bit version, but we shall see. So that's at the moment, I think it's Netfetch 5.99, because I haven't quite got to version 6, but we're planning to have that out in time for the show, with upgrades available at the show and via Pling Store. So you'll be able to upgrade to the new Netfetch with all the latest standards and configuration elements. And any more ideas that I can squeeze in between now and October the 26th, I think it is, for the show. Moving on from software there, just talk a little bit more about the NVMe stuff that's been at the core of our computers for the last 12 months. September saw us release version 9 of our NVMe drivers. They came with the new software called NVMe Tools. NVMe Tools provides a one-stop shop for managing and configuring and testing your NVMe drive. For example, you can look at Smart Health Status and get a report on your drive. You can see that this particular Hydra machine is running a Sabrent Rocket 4 NVMe. You can see the serial and firmware. We can see that it's a healthy drive with 100% drive life remaining. It's currently running at 37 Celsius. These are all color-coded. If they drop into unhealthy states or states that we think you need to pay attention to, they will change from green to yellow to red as they go. You can see that the actual drive reports in Kelvin degrees, which is kind of wacky, which is why we've translated it for you into Celsius at the top here. You can see that it's, over here we can see that it's had a few unsafe shutdowns where I've just turned off, no disk errors, and no overheat time. This particular drive is relatively recently installed, a few months back, and it's been used for 38 hours. this kind of information is obviously useful when gauging the health of your drive. I think for most of us, it's kind of interesting set of statistics that it's fun to see reported back in RISC OS, that this is the kind of information that we don't normally get to see on RISC OS, the sort of health of disk drives. So seeing it presented in a nice sort of desktop fashion is pretty handy. One of the next things that the programmer's working on for that is self-testing. So you'll actually be able to run diagnostic tests on the drive to check the drive health and get a report back on the drive health. That the NVMe Smart specifications actually include a testing capability, a short test and a long test, so that you can actually test to see how what condition the drive is in through the smart disk monitoring capabilities. NVMe Tools also offers facilities like 512E up to 4K drive conversion. So this particular drive, excuse me, does support 4K, which allows us to have larger than 256 gig RISC OS partitions, up to 2 terabytes per partition, and up to 4 partitions per drive, meaning that we could, in theory, use an 8 terabyte drive. Sabrent, whose drive this is, I noticed yesterday, we're offering a 8 terabyte version of this particular drive. So one could, in theory, buy that 8 terabyte drive and configure it all for RISC OS. I'm not going to reconfigure it right now, because you have to, once you've done that, it needs to be reformatted, because the drive gets blanked when you change the sector size. That's quite normal on all operating systems. So I'm not going to do that now. That would make a right mess of my demo. We also have the 4K formatter, which lets us automatically format up to 2 gig per partition. And you can see that you can select drives, you can select the LFAU size, or simply just leave it on auto, which is what I tend to do, and give the drive a name. So basically, NVMe Tools software is included with the driver and with our machines, and allows us to do all sorts of management facilities on our NVMe drive and partitions. The performance of the drivers is extremely high. It can approach, and in 1 or 2 cases, exceed RAM disk speeds. So, you know, I think at this point we're now being limited more by the file call filing system rather than anything else. By way of real-world examples, at a recent in the questions and answer after a recent London user group meeting, the speaker was talking about he'd just moved to a Hydra, and he was saying that something that took over 5 minutes on his IMX6 machine, and even longer, would you believe, on a Pi 4 with a USB solid-state disk. So I think it was 5.5 minutes with the Pi 4 with the USB drive, just over 5 on an IMX6, finished in just over a minute on the Hydra with the NVMe drive. And on RAM disk, I think it was sort of 48, 49 seconds. So faster, but only by a relatively small amount. Real world improvements that genuinely make a difference to, if something completes in about a minute versus 5 minutes, that's quite a worthwhile improvement. And so basically anything that you do, email, graphics work, etc., that's using your main drive, even Profit. One of my colleagues moved over from a Pi 4 machine to one of the next machines that we do, which is like the Hydra but without the extra heads. He saw a huge difference in Profit invoices, that it was taking a very long time for Profit to generate invoices on the other machine, and it did it almost instantly on the NVMe drive. So it makes a difference to real world use, as well as just the sort of hypothetical benchmarks that we normally talk in. So obviously that will be an important part of what we're showing at the London show in terms of our RISC OS computers. whilst we may have some new features to show, our main focus is on getting the best out of the hardware that we're offering. We feel that we're sort of more or less at a point where the 32-bit architecture is reaching. We don't expect to see new 32-bit machines. So getting the most out of what we already have and the products that we offer is the focus at the moment. So, if you're thinking about buying one of our machines, but you're concerned that there's going to be something new coming along, that's not our current business model. We see the current range of machines as the ones that we're going to be selling going forwards, and we're going to be building on those with free updates, etc., with new operating system updates and new software like the NVMe tools that you see there, which we provided free of charge to all of our customers. Similarly, we have just one or two Pinebook Pros still available. We're tending to sort of source them to order now from the Far East and America, which does put the price up a little bit, but does mean that we can still source the odd Pinebook Pro as well. I've been investigating some other possibilities for moving forwards once Pinebook Pro ceases to be available, but it's still, quite frankly, an all-round top-of-the-line piece of kit with things like the optional NVMe stuff, the nice screen, and the fast processor. So there's still a lot to like with the Pinebook Pros. We are looking to see if there's a possible compute module based unit coming along in due course. But my worry there is that it may well be 64-bit only, so we may need to look at other options for running RISC OS on that. So, if you are interested in things like the Pinebook, get in touch quick, I think would be the message there. So yeah, that's talked about, I think, the laptops that I've been working on, the new Netfetch, latest developments with the NVMe drivers. Eagle-eyed amongst you will see that there's an NVMe 4 and NVMe 5 here, which is being done with partitioning. So this is a 512 gig NVMe drive that I've split in half into two 256 partitions. I could have done it as one 512 with a 4KN format, but I think it's fun to see two icons on the icon bar, and it demonstrates sort of what you can do with the disk partitioning facilities. So at that point, I'm going to take a quick pause and stop screen sharing for a second. It's a different UI on. Oh no, it's not. That helps if you click the right thing. That should be me back to being full screen and the screen sharing going. So, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've talked about so far?
Yes, one question I have, Andrew. If you're using an NVMe drive with 4K sectors, can you format it to less than the full size of the drive?
You can, I believe, if you use the format tool, you can specify. Oh, can you?
No.
For 4KN, I think that particular formatter does do the whole drive. However, and this is a big however, the way I would tackle that I would convert, and I know this is a slightly non-RISC OS way of doing things. The way I would tackle that would be to first use the NVMe tool to convert to 4KN. Once we're in 4KN, I would then plug that on into my Linux system and use gparted to apply some partitions. and then plug that drive back into RISC OS, at which point those partitions would be visible on RISC OS, and we could format those partitions, because the actual partitions, the way our driver works, the partitions are handled at driver level. So although it will nominally format the whole drive, the drive presenting to RISC OS will be the partition, not the whole drive. So once there's partition information on the drive, you will have sort of NVMe 4, NVMe 5, NVMe 6, NVMe 7, etc. And then you can format those up as you see fit, and therefore just use, if you wanted to make the first half of the drive, for example, a RISC OS partition, then you'd create 2 partitions on the drive, and then when you plugged it in, you'd get 2 icons on the icon bar, and you'd format the first one to be file core 4KN with the 4KN formatter, and then the second partition would be whatever you felt you wanted to make it.
Does the partition table have to be one particular type, or can it be either GPT or MBR?
It has to be GPT at the moment, because that's the sort of more modern format that we've gone with, because MBR is only valid up to 2 terabytes, and when we're talking about a 4KN world, then we're going beyond 2 terabytes. If we start partitioning, that 4 terabytes, 8 terabytes is entirely plausible, so it makes sense to be GPT.
Thank you.
Now, I will say that we have talked about doing an MBR module as well. There's no particular reason why we couldn't. It's just that it's more work and, well, more things to go wrong. So we got it working with the GPT, and we stuck with that for the time being. As with all things in life, the list of things we would like to do is as long as your arm. The things that there is time to do is considerably shorter.
Is it possible to do this on a Pinebook Pro so that you would put the Linux SD card in when you wanted to partition the NVMe drive, and then put the RISC OS one back in when you wanted to format the RISC OS?
Absolutely, 110%. That would work. Because basically, when you boot into Linux, you would see the whole of the drive. Run gparted on the Linux SD, and then set up the drive how you wanted it, and away you go.
But not any clever way to jump into Linux from RISC OS, unfortunately.
No, largely because, well, there's 2 problems with Pinebook Pro. The main issue is that the NVMe drive is not a boot device. So when the chip initializes, it can't see the NVMe drive until the Linux bootloader tells it about it. The bootloader that's built into the processor only does SD and eMMC, SPI as well, but so you need something else somewhere that isn't the NV on the NVMe. So booting to Linux from RISC OS. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not something that our programming team is really spending any time on. Again, it's down to when you've got basically 2 people who can do this work. Prioritizing something like that for them, unless it's a pet project for them to do, it's difficult to justify, particularly when it may be it might not be practical. I do know John Abbott was investigating doing something by trying to make RISC OS work more like Linux for starting up, but I'm not sure that really went anywhere. And the only system that I've ever seen actually do that was where it actually went from RISC OS to Linux live was the Titanium. And even then, I'm not 100% sure had a few instances with customers where it did to start with, and then a combination of updates and RISC OS updates and Linux updates left it not doing, and things got a bit murky. So I'm not. It left a slightly irksome taste in my mouth, shall we say. I quite like the belt and braces approach, to be perfectly honest with you, so that you can always get yourself back to being able to access your data if things aren't working.
Well, of course, on the Pi 4, you can put conditional startups in the
yes,
booting that look at the GPIO pins, so that you can have a button that will say, boot into Linux this time.
Yeah. That's only possible because of the clever firmware on the Pi.
Yeah.
Anything from anybody else, or shall I? Oh, Charles, I'm seeing Charles Hope waving his hand.
Yes, thank you. Your lovely new portable.
Right.
Are you able to give any idea on pricing?
About £1,000.
And how much does what does that include? Just the computer or all your updates?
All the updates and everything. That's the kind. I mean, I'm saying about because everyone is slightly different in terms of specification and software, etc. But they've all been in that plus or minus sort of 50 to 80 quid, shall we say, of that target for that particular unit with the RISC OS and everything. So yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else, or are we ready for me to change hats and move on to talk RISC OS developments for the show?
I think you might have another customer for your wonderful laptop.
So thank you. Right, so moving on to RISC OS developments. There's going to be sort of three things that we are, or four things, I think. I'll summarize them first. I think that's probably the best way to deal with this, and then I'll try and show you as much as I can. Two of them, there's not much I can demonstrate. So basically the four things are, firstly, and you possibly heard this before, but general public release of iRISC via PacMan. Which will hopefully please certain people an awful lot. Essentially, what we've set up over the summer is a packaging server at RISC OS Developments with the help of Chris Granston, who volunteered through the Rule forums, and he's been extremely helpful. Big shout out to Chris for what he's been able to do with us for that. And basically what we've created is a RISC OS Developments packaging server where you can automate the install of iRISC onto your computer. And I will hopefully demonstrate that once I've done this introduction. And more importantly, give you the URL so you can all go and play with it yourself. So for everybody who wants to go and post on the forums that you can't get iRISC anywhere, tonight you will have the URL and it will be put on the videos, and everybody will have the URL where you can go and automate the packaging of iRISC and install iRISC on your machines. So that's fairly big news for iRISC. The second thing that we shall be offering, all being well, subject to time, will be a new version of RISC OS Direct, with an emphasis towards supporting Raspberry Pi 5 computers. That will be based on a Linux backend, because obviously the 64-bit thing remains outstanding, but you will be able to use the RISC OS Direct software out of the box on such a machine and simply download and install that to your computer. alongside the various RISC OS Direct projects that we have for Pi 4 and all the earlier Pis and compute modules and things. So that means that you will actually be able to use RISC OS Direct on pretty much any Pi system available, which we think is important. And even if the experience isn't quite as good as it would be on the Pi 4 and earlier, at least it means that when people contact us and say, why can't I run RISC OS on my Raspberry Pi 5? We can point them to this and say, hey, you can at the very least try RISC OS. It runs well on this hardware. There may be things that you can't do on the Pi 5 that you can do on the older machines. But at least you can actually run the core operating system. You can see the user interface. You can try the applications and have an experience that is distinctly RISC OS. It won't be right for every situation, and we don't see it as a permanent solution. But I think it's important that RISC OS is offered on as many platforms as we can, and especially as many Pi platforms as we can, because realistically the Raspberry Pi has become very much the sort of poster child for running RISC OS in recent years, and not supporting Raspberry Pi 5 is starting to be a bit of an embarrassment, for want of a better term. So that's the second piece of the jigsaw puzzle. The third and fourth things will be somewhat considerably smaller elements. There'll be a new version of the TCP and Wi-Fi stack available, fixing some slowdowns and pauses and delays that we've spotted during development of other projects. And to answer Vince's question, yes, that's the intent, is that it would work extremely well on the new Pi 5 100 plus with a better keyboard and built-in NVMe drive. So new TCP IP stack with Wi-Fi. And then the fourth thing is a brand new bit of tech that we've been developing for another project. I'm not sure that this is going to be directly useful to all RISC OS users, but as many of you are aware, there is a use case for RISC OS for running big online databases. Traditionally runs on IMX6 RISC OS platforms for their servers, and the database software basically feeds out via web interface in a platform agnostic way. So customers don't realize they're using RISC OS, but the actual database engine and all the files runs on RISC OS, allowing it to be extremely efficient and high and performant. As part of the next generation of that particular project, there was a need for separating the storage of data from the actual database engine itself. So the database engine is still running on RISC OS, but we needed facilities like RAID and offsite storage and cloning and various other modern filing system facilities. So what's been developed is building on the TCP/IP stack work from one of the programmers involved in that, is a new filing system that actually it's a file call filing system, but it stores its data over Ethernet. So instead of having the file call filing system on an NVMe drive or a USB drive or something physically connected to your RISC OS machine, the file call filing system can be anything that is connectable via Ethernet / TCP/IP. So by way of example, the filing system storing the data was stored on a Pi 5 system running on a server setup. I believe it may have had multiple drives. I'm not entirely sure whether it was a single drive or a multi-drive setup, but basically that was in one county, and the actual database was running sort of halfway across the country in a different location. And apparently the performance was so good that for reading from the database, there was no perceivable performance degradation. Writing was very slightly slower. I would like to say maybe a second extra in database writing vis-a-vis doing the same operations on the local drive. but coupled with the user interface being over the web anyway, point was that it was basically a negligible in the overall scheme of the performance to compared with running it live, at least for sort of moderate use. And that filing system we hope to make available through ROD. So it basically gives you the ability to have a file call filing system stored anywhere that you can access via TCP/IP. Practical uses for end users, I'm not entirely sure at the moment, but it opens up the ideas of having a fast file call based filing system that can be split across multi-disk RAID or any on a NAS or other Pi based. Well, it doesn't have to be Pi based, but other Linux based server that you have connected to the internet as a storage solution. As I say, this has come out of a separate project, but because the programmer is working is the same as one of the people who works on the TCP/IP, he said, "Would you like to offer that as part of Rod's TCP/IP work?" And we said, "Sure." So that'll be a new filing system that will be available, allowing you to do RISC OS from anywhere you like. I suppose it's a bit like having a cloud filing system, but it's specific to RISC OS with it being file call, and you could run it yourself. So let's have a quick look at the iRISC stuff. So I'm going to screen share again, and hopefully you can see that. And so first things first, let's get this out the way. That is the URL for packaging iRISC. So if you want to make a note of that, you can try out downloading iRISC pre-packaged through PacMan. And I will proceed to show you how to do so. What I've done is artificially put myself back with a really old PacMan, really old resources. So this is, I haven't tested this, so it could go spectacularly wrong, but I've tried to set it back to how it might be if you've got a more or less unused system with just maybe a bare bones. Let's say you downloaded RISC OS Direct or something, you've got a bare bones of PacMan with a few apps installed already, but it's sort of somewhat out of date because you've not been using it and you don't really do much with PacMan. So basically PacMan will traditionally be in your apps folder. We've got a shared libs in there which should not be in there, so this may be about to go spectacularly wrong because those should not be there. I noticed that when I was preparing them. So a quick look at where try and make this back to right. Okay, I see what went wrong earlier. Okay. I'm just going to stop screen sharing and just do a quick on the fly fix up. Apologies for this, but I just need to restore some files and make sure things are how I would have expected them to be. I think when I was putting things back earlier, I put them into the wrong folder, is what happened. I put them into apps rather than boot resources, because I thought something was a bit fishy earlier and tried to fix it, but that would explain what happened. Let's try that. Okay. Right. So if we go to apps and then run PacMan, you can see that PacMan comes up and tells me that I haven't updated my package for a very long time. So we'll say yes. And then we'll tell it to upgrade everything. It says it's going to do stuff. I'm just going to click on upgrade because that seems like the best way to deal with things. This will upgrade packages I've already got installed, and most notably, it will install a new version of PacMan. That's quite important because the new PacMan is required to install IRIS. You'll see what happens, or rather what doesn't happen, if I use the older version, which is what I'm running right now. What we've done is to take advantage of some of the features of the newer PacMan so that IRIS is only offered on systems that can actually run it. So it's found some discrepancies and oddities. So I'm going to click back up and retry. And that seems to sort out those problems. Once we're done, we need to tell PacMan about the RISC OS Developments packaging server. So we go to, I believe, choice. Nope. Advanced and then sources. And we click add. I've got that in the text file for ease, and that adds the URL that we've got big on the top of the screen into PacMan, and then it puts it there. And we click save. It then automatically refreshes the package list. We can see that there are some new entries, but you'll notice that IRIS is missing from here. So everything related to IRIS is not in the list. This is because we're still running the older version of PacMan 0.9.5 beta from 2020. So to get IRIS to show up, what we need to do is quit PacMan and go back into apps and go to PacMan again. And now we see that because we've installed the updates, we're now running 0.9.8 beta of 2024. And if we click on that and now search IRIS, you'll see that it's found the IRIS web browser. And because we're running on a modern computer with VFP and Neon, it is offered to us as a package that we can install. So we can double click on that. We have some optional packages. These green suggests basically some additional fonts that you can install to get some additional characters. And it's going to install it into NVMe 4 apps network IRIS. I wish it wouldn't install it into a subfolder in apps. I have a real pet peeve of that, but that seems to be how things are done. So fair enough. That's what we'll do. We do get the choice to move it around in a moment. So it shows us that all the different packages and things that it's going to do. It's going to need to download 60 meg of data and then automatically install all these libraries in order to enable IRIS. We can move IRIS around by dragging and dropping it here, but for now I'm just going to list it or do it in its ordinary way, and then we click install. And all being well, we will find that an IRIS folder will appear in apps. I really ought to get the upgrade to fiber to the premises, really. network, and there's Iris. You can see now it's ticked that it's completed the install. And if we're lucky, all things being equal, we can now run Iris. And, well, it worked last time I tried. Okay. I need to go back to Chris and find out what's going on there. You just see, does that sources out? Nope. Okay, there we are. Probably best to do a reboot after you've installed it. That was basically just needing to reinitialize the shared libraries after.
Well, it's on the icon bar anyway.
Yeah, it's on the icon. Well, it may still blow up, but all being well, it won't. The first time you use it, it does take a while to open because it's having to build a font cache. And I've left my choices in memory, so it's got the wrong location for the. You wouldn't get this error because I previously had a copy of Iris on the root directory and saved my configuration there. It's just showing up the fact that I've had it previously installed. So if I just put an extra copy where it used to be, it'll find the files it's looking for. Normally, it would just use the copies inside Iris, but because it already had a configuration file from my previous install, the homepage wasn't pointing to the right place. So, oops. And you can see that there we have Iris running, having been installed by PacMan. Hopefully it will be, you can see that once we've done the first time font configuration install, it's considerably faster to do the to open the home page. Yeah, so one last time, there's the URL. Go grab your irises and let us know how you get on in terms of testing the packaged version of Iris, please. So that's the Iris news. Next up, we have the RISC OS Direct for Pi 5. So in this particular Hydra machine, I have a Pi 5 compute module, and that is that has RISC OS installed on it. You can see I have an Enter RISC OS icon, which conveniently has a nice cog on it. And I just double click that. Boom, there is RISC OS Direct for Raspberry Pi. If I just we have RISC OS Direct with all the core things. It defaults to a 1080p desktop with working networking, so you can sort of run NetSurf. NetSurf running the icon bar site. So that's working out of the box. You can also run things like PlingStore and other networking related things. And it comes with all the usual applications. Whether Everything here will be included. This is a version that needs a little bit of pruning before October the 26th. So there may well be a few things that get removed and a few things that get added between now and then. But fundamentally, you've got the RISC OS Direct environment. The main limitation is no sound, so that does stop a few things working, and no VFP, which means no iris. But other than that, you have a working RISC OS environment, and that performs extremely well. If you run the benchmarks on it, it actually scores higher benchmarks than on a Pi 4. So although it's hard to experience it like this because we're essentially running on Zoom to VNC to VNC, which is not necessarily the best way to do it. Normally you'd be interacting with it directly, but the experience is solid. Something like Ovation Pro. Yeah, not the best test because of all the hops it's having to go through to do it. And then both over my network and within the Hydra, and then back to Zoom and back to out to Zoom to you is a bit of a ludicrous demonstration. But on the other hand, you can see it works. It's RISC OS, so again, we should have that ready to download in time for the show. The other two are more or less covered in the intro section. The new TCP/IP and the Ethernet-based filing system. The new TCP/IP stack will be just a replacement for the existing downloads on the RISC OS Developments website. And as I say, basically contains a whole bunch of bug fixes and improvements based on the last sort of 6 months of changes. In particular, some scheduling and priority fixes, which allows certain things to perform better because they're not waiting for things to happen. We found some bottlenecks in resolving, for example, that were taking unnecessarily long to time out, etc. So that should be again ready for download. And the Ethernet-based filing system, I need to speak to the programmer more about whether we can get that released for the show or whether it's just something that we'll be demonstrating. But basically, that's a new piece of technology for RISC OS that will allow you to have file core filing systems on remote servers. And basically, because it's file core, programs, as far as they're concerned, they're running on native RISC OS disks. So, any program that does weird things on FAT32 or Landman or whatever, it's a file core disk. To all intents and purposes, it's what it's used to. So should be spot on. It certainly has been in our own testing, but the point is that it's abstracted and accessible over Ethernet, so that what it's actually living on is essentially any block device on a Linux filing system, probably on other things too. But that means the underlying tech could be RAID, it could be iSCSI, whatever, whatever can present itself as a block device under Linux. So the world's your oyster for storing the file core partition on there, and then simply accessing it with network as the transport. So yeah. Okay, so I'm noticing that it's almost 9 o'clock, so that would make it a good time to switch back to questions and answers. So I am going to close out of that share and ask if anybody has any questions on the second half of the talk.
And Andrew, does ROD on the Pi 5 run Emulor?
I do not believe that there is an emulator for RISC OS for Linux as of this time.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest with you, what we haven't had as much time as I would like for is exploring to go beyond where we are now, as it were. I had hoped that we would have had a bit more development time, but the summer has kind of got away from us because of school holidays and people's vacations and things. So we could have really done with the show being at the end of December rather than at the end of October, in terms of having a bit more cooking time for some of this work. But c'est la vie. Any other questions?
General question, Andrew. I think it's in the package version for the iOS with 1.037, which I think is the current version. Is there any plan for when the next update, for want of a better term, likely to be available?
Well, I put a few requests through to Lee. I haven't had anything back in the last month, but that's quite normal. Generally speaking, Lee will quietly beaver away on things and then get in touch when he feels things have gestated to a point where it's good to send me some stuff. So yeah, I mean, there may well be an update in time for the show. I don't know. I haven't received anything in time for this meeting, shall we say? But work is still continuing.
Yeah, it's looking very good, especially the PDF part.
Yeah, I mean, the plan is that we'll effectively have two releases, the sort of more complete. I say more complete. That's the wrong way of phrasing it, but monolithic, I suppose, is probably the right word, but at the risk of sounding a bit grand, version of Iris as has traditionally been available, and that will continue to be available. And then the PacMan version is a bit more fragmented into individual packages, but provides an alternative way of getting hold of it, because we know that there's an audience that wanted that. And it seemed, well, bottom line was Chris was extremely helpful in making it happen. So between us, we've done what we can. So essentially, you've got a preview in time for the show. We should have that properly available from the website, and sort out all the sort of. At the moment, I think some of the README files are probably out of date and don't match up to being packaged, and we've got to get get additional credits and things. I'd like to get Chris properly credited in the documentation and things. So there's still bits to do, which is why I'm sort of calling it a beta at this stage. But in principle, I think hopefully you get the gist of what's happening, and the fact that you can just go to that URL and play with it. In future, I hope that we'll also have a few more things on the ROD package manager. So obvious things would be Pinboard 2. It would be rather difficult to PacMan the network stack, I think, because that actually sort of you actually have to run the installer because it has multiple different versions for the different hardware platforms. So it would actually need to determine what hardware you're running on and install the appropriate drivers for your hardware and customize it to the specific network environment that you're running, in terms of which Ethernet modules and things you are running, which kind of needs the installer. So I'm not sure that the TCP/IP is well suited to package management, although I'm sure somebody would tell me I'm wrong on that. But certainly I would like to see Pinboard 2 offered through PacMan, and see how we go from there. The other bit of RISC OS news is we do now have a GitLab set up with all of our source code available on it as well. Again, I know that was something that people were wanting to see happen, and that's been done over the summer. I think it's gitlab.riscosdev.com, but don't quote me on that, because it's only just popped into my mind that that was something that we did over the summer.
Going back a bit, Andrew, to your Netfetch changes.
Yep.
Thinking about that, I've used Netfetch, and I noticed some of the changes going, which make sense, make good sense for some of the changes you say with PlusNet moving the email to Greenbee or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And also, one of the other things, because I have multiple domains, I've tended to remove the what's it called, where you set up the default SMTP server. I've left it blank because it's not the server I'm connecting to, and I'm connecting to potentially 3 different servers, well, 3 different SMTP servers, which get logged into from the email account side of things. But because I don't have it blank, you keep putting a warning message up that I haven't set a default SMTP mail server in this default. Nor it disappears after a few seconds, but I just wondered if it can be looked at. Yeah.
I'll see if I can knock that on the head. I mean, the intention is that you put one of them as your primary one that will be used if other ones fail. So whichever server is the one that you mostly use, I would put that one in the box, and then let in Hermes you can specify the overrides so that the other servers get used automatically as needed, depending on what email address you send from. So I would just let it sort itself out. Put one in so that there is something set system wide. And then for the others, just let Hermes automatically take care of it. There's no particular reason to actually keep it blank. But I grant you that it's not something that needs to be set, and having a warning pop up about it each time is a bit annoying. So at the very least, I could put a setting in the choices to disable that warning message. What I didn't say in the talk, but which I think is quite important, is that we will be offering the upgrade free of charge to anybody who's bought Netfetch this year. So basically, anyone who bought it in 2025, either as an upgrade or as a full copy, will get an upgrade to version 6 for free.
One thing, Andrew, I have got more than one SMTP server. I haven't found a way of setting it up so it actually works. So at the moment, it says it's from one domain, but it's actually sent from another one. Are the instructions to make Hermes sort of send it the right way somewhere? Because I can't find them, and I've given up.
As far as I'm aware, they're in the Hermes manual, and basically you go to choices and then email boxes. No, sorry, choices, then account, and into the SMTP sending stuff for Hermes, and then you let me share screen and I'll show you. So basically what we would do is we'd say send one. This is an old one from the development copy. We go to addresses, and basically what it's using is a partial match. So basically it's looking for something in the when you send the email from from Messenger or Pluto or whatever, it's looking for something in the headers to say which address it's being sent from. So basically what we do is we say, well, in a sense, this is a bad example because it's an out-of-date new server from Daemon from donkey's years ago. But basically, let's say we want all of our email from Daemon to go. We would just simply get put and then it will automatically use that SMTP send server when it encounters a daemon.co.uk email address as being the one that's being sent from. It will automatically use that server to send the email.
How does it know? Does it look at the SIG?
No, it uses the headers. Basically, when you compose an email, I should stress that I am not the programmer for Hermes, therefore I may be about to give you incorrect information. But as far as I am aware, it gets it from the text and work file. So if we look in outgoing mail, you get 2 folders, text and work. And when an email is composed, you will get the actual bit, the data that's sent gets put into text. And a work file is created which contains information about the address that's sending it from and where it's sending it to. And it uses that information, I believe. It may draw it from the text version.
I think it actually takes it from that address box. It uses everything after, depends on how you set it up, but if you put the @ sign and say daemon.co.uk, any addresses through Daemon will automatically get directed through that, and it picks it up from that, from your email address.
It's where it matches it to when you how it's. I think the question was more to do with not so much how you specify it. I mean, that's how you specify it in Hermes, but where does Hermes pick it up from to make that determination? And I think it picks it up from the file called work, that it passes that, and then it matches what's in the work file to what's in the in that thing. So from a user's perspective, you don't really need to know exactly how it's doing that. You just need to know that you go to addresses and add just part of the thing that matches. So like, you know, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, just daemon.co.uk, or it might be, as Chris said, something like @rcomp.co.uk, you know.
My question is a little bit more awkward.
Okay.
When I'm composing an email,
Yes.
how do I compose one that's got to come from somewhere else?
Okay, so I mean, that's down to how you've set up your email program. So I'm going to demonstrate it in Messenger. It may be different for Pluto. First, I've got to see if I've got a copy of let's go to network and see if I've got a copy of Messenger on this machine. I do. It's not set up. That's not helpful. Username. Okay, so this is going to be very rough and ready. There are multiple ways you can do this in Messenger. Fundamentally, there are 2 ways, 2 approaches, and what approach you use depends on how your brain works, essentially. If your brain works in a sort of structured manner, then the way to do it is to create users for each address. So, you know, let's say you've got one that's rcomp.co.uk, another one that's riscosdev.com. You'd create a new user for each one, and then you can select it from login menu. You can also add users mailboxes by using the plus minus and add mailboxes so they all appear in one list. So even if you are using multiple users, you can make them appear all in one window. Otherwise, some people say, I don't want to be messing with that. I just want one inbox and just to be just to be all things to all men with just one user in, you know, one window. Forget users. It's just me. I don't get all of that. It's all too complicated. How do I do it? So in that case, if you fall into that kind of thing, going a bit more anarchic, wild way of doing Wild West, You go to user management, you just use a single user, and what you do is you put a comma separated list, comma, and now when I compose a message, if I click headers, you'll see I can now specify.
Ah.
And that is how you choose it, who it's from. You can also change signatures as well in line with that. One nice feature that I like to use, and I actually use the user method, but I have them all appearing in one window. So to me, that's the best of both worlds. But what you can do, if you create a new folder, what you can do is go to group test and go edit choices. This is quite a fun little thing. If we go to send, for that folder, we can change the identity that messages stored in that folder appear to be from. So what I can do now is choose the Andrew, and you'll see it's giving me the list from the comma separated list that we created in the user management. I'm going to put Andrew at RISCOSDev.com. Let's create another signature just for the fun of this. Message editing, open the signatures. I really can't type tonight. I'm sort of sitting at an angle to the keyboard and it's just not doing me any favors. So we're going to put the test signature and that in it. We can choose tagline, well, we're going to ignore that. You can change message IDs and you can also choose to file things in different folders. I'm going to ignore all of that for the purposes of this little quick demo, but you can make use of it all. If we go into the test folder and then we compose an email, you see we've got our test signature and we've also got it automatically set to be the Andrew at RISC OS Dev account. So basically, if you're filtering your mail into different folders and you want to be a different person when you go into that folders, that's how you do it. And then when you, so basically, if I'm just using it generally, we are test at rcomp.co.uk. And when we, or in our inbox, test at rcomp.co.uk, but when we're in this test folder, rather slightly confusingly, we are Andrew at RISCOSDev.com. And
right, that is excellent. Thank you, Andrew. There's one further question I have, and that is that with this particular provider, if I log on to webmail, it's quite happy with my user ID and password. But if I supply the same user ID and password to Hermes, it won't authenticate when I try to send or fetch. Is there any, when I try to fetch, is there any stupid thing I might be doing that means they have to be different?
My guess, I mean, it's a fairly broad question. If you don't, so I'm sort of trying to think of probable mistakes that could be made. And
this is about receiving, actually, rather than sending.
Okie doke. I mean, the most obvious things that I can, I'm going into looking at the things to look at the boxes to remind me of all the settings that we've got. So, I mean, first things first, username and password. It may be that the username, sometimes I've seen instances where you have to log in with a full email address, like bob@smith.com, with when accessing via POP or IMAP. But when you use their webmail service, you just log in with Bob or Smith. You don't put the full email address. So one thing to do would be to check that what syntax they're expecting. Usually that information will be on there. The provider will have a page where they tell you the settings required for different email clients. And they'll tell you what format the login should be in on that, because it's the same information you need to set up Outlook or whatever. So that's the first thing, is check the username. Second thing, check the port. A lot of things require SSL these days, or TLS rather, because SSL is technically obsolete. It's all TLS these days. There are two kinds of SSL connections. Essentially, one that runs on a different port, which is what we call SSL, and essentially is encrypted from top to bottom. The other method typically runs on port 110 like an ordinary POP fetch, but uses a command called start TLS. Once the servers are chatting to each other, you broadcast the start TLS command, and it goes encrypted sort of after the fact, for want of a better term. These two are not interchangeable. Some servers require start TLS methodology, others require the use of a fully encrypted port from beginning to end. So check that. With SSL, there are different versions of TLS in use. Some servers are not happy with the different versions, and and they may have additional requirements associated with them, which is part of what we're looking into for for Netfetch 6. At the moment, I've only seen one server that sort of gets fussy about that, and that's for with the SSL, the TLS 1.3. I think it was Google, but I'd need to check. So that's another thing that can go wrong. Don't use this authenticated login APOP option. Some people have ticked that and they get themselves into a mess. I've never seen a server that uses APOP. I'm sure there are some somewhere, but I've never seen it. So generally speaking, you want APOP turned off. Beyond that, as I say, check the port matches the connection type and security that you are using. And that's really all there is to it. The other gotcha I've seen can relate. No, it's more to do with sending, so not to do with POP fetching. I was going to say host names and domain names and things being correct in boot, and to some degree in Messenger as well. But that's more to do with sending than it is POP. I've not seen POP having issues there. So I mean, those are the things to look at. I encountered sort of this kind of problem with the PlusNet changeover in the summer, but ultimately that turned out to be basically PlusNet servers being balked, and 24 hours later it was all working correctly. So.
And while you're in the mood,
don't panic. If at first you don't succeed, don't panic. It could be the ISP as the other aspect.
Well, while you're in the mood, I have one further question.
Yeah.
One strange thing I've noticed on POP is that I get messages marked red and green by Messenger, which is fine, but there are also messages that remain on the webmail and never get transferred across and never get any notification that they're there until one day it says your mailbox is full. So I spent ages trying to weed out older emails to find that was of completely to no avail. Is there any explanation for this?
Okay, so one possibility is if your ISP is doing spam filtering. My rcomp.co.uk provider does have a spam bin that they and when you fetch via POP, you don't get the stuff in the spam bin. You only get the stuff in the main bin. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is to check how you've got it configured for fetching. There are two options that may be relevant. Skip already. This is the default way of doing it. Enable fetching from this account and remove the mail from the server when fetched. That will cause it to fetch basically all the messages it can via POP and remove them when it's finished.
Yeah.
And when it removes them, it literally goes through each one at a time and waits for an OK message back from the server, which, if there are a lot of emails, can take a while. To combat this, there is an option, use fast queued message deletion, which I would normally recommend ticking, which basically then, when it comes to deleting the messages, it sends basically a big long list of delete commands, and it doesn't wait for an OK in between. Most servers, that's absolutely fine, and they'll just go away and do all the deletions, and everything's good. But that doesn't apply. There are some servers that kind of, they'll do a few, but once you're sending a lot to them, they'll start missing some and just not doing it and just generally being weird. So it's worth,
that's not the issue, Andrew. The messages that sit on the server are ones I have never seen.
Okay, so they've never been fetched in the thing.
Yeah.
The other thing to do is just check the skip messages already fetched. It is just possible that you've got that ticked and the message IDs are matching things that it thinks it's already fetched, which could happen if you're accessing the mailbox from multiple machines and sort of clearing them out on one machine and not on the other. Then the message IDs may get out of sync, because basically the skip mail already fetched causes Hermes to keep a track on what you've fetched. So essentially it keeps an ID list of everything it's done in order to know which things to fetch and which things not to fetch. It is just possible that something if you've got the skip already fetched mail ticked, then it might be matching that and saying, oh, I'm not going to fetch that because I've already fetched it.
I think overall it seems to be a function of the server that things that it is certain are spam, it just keeps stored forever until it fills up. But the error message from Messenger is very unhelpful because it implies that your Messenger database is full.
Would this by chance be Gmail?
Sorry, Chris?
Would it by any chance be Gmail where you're seeing this, or Hotmail or Outlook.com? Is it any of them web-based internet providers?
You mean emails from those addresses?
Yeah, from either Gmail. Well, no. Do you have a Gmail account, and are they staying on your thing? I've seen that with Gmail, where even though I fetch and say delete what's on, they're never deleted by Gmail.
I don't have a Gmail account.
Yeah. It's just an example of where I've seen it happen. That's exactly what you're seeing.
Well, thank you very much for all those ideas.
It does sound like, the most likely is that it's a server thing. You may have the option on the server's control panel to change the spam filtering level. I know on my RComp one, that is an option in, when you log in with the webmail, you can get a sort of settings page and you can control the level of spam filtering and things that they apply to the account. So you may find that sort of lowering that or turning it off. That being said, I've never seen anything fill up to a point where I've been told that the mailbox is full. So that's just a bit weird. Is it a common internet provider that we might have heard of?
Fast names.
Okay, are they the ones that used to? I feel like I know the name.
Neil Borland. Immerse.
Sorry?
Immerse.co.uk. E-MERCE.
Not ringing any bells off the top of my
Right.
head.
Just Chris, just a quick question. You're not using IMAP to connect to that server, are you? You are using POP.
I am using POP.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have an answer because I mean essentially the only thing that I'm aware of that changes the what it can fetch is that option with the skip already fetch mail. Other than that, it will try, as far as I'm aware, fetch everything that is listed as being in the POP mailbox by the server. So it sounds like the server is never actually telling it that those messages are available, which sounds like a spam setting and needs to be changed on the server somehow.
Okay, thanks very much, Andrew.
Okay. Sorry, I can't be more help on that, but it's not something I've personally encountered. So, okie doke. Just stopping the stop share, please. Sorry about that. The basically Zoom crashed when I tried to stop sharing. So don't know what was going on there. Okay. Anybody else or anybody else?
Any more questions? Okay. Well, there's been lots of very interesting things coming up, and we've got some exciting things to look forward to.
I'm hoping there'll be more in time for the show, but it's just sort of.
Yeah.
I think the RUGOL meeting's like a week before the show, which is arguably a better time to have your ducks in order. But October's going to be quite a busy month for things here at Arcomp Towers.
Just keep up the good work.
Thank you, Chris. What do you want to unmute everybody, or for
anybody else got any more questions before I stop the recording?